Hi everyone. I have read your papers on innovation and reviewed your PowerPoints that were designed to be persuasive towards innovation and appreciate your hard work with those. You're going to go into both of those assignments. Remember, you submitted two files and look on your file for the inline grading feedback, as well as look in the rubric in case there's feedback there as well. If you have questions or concerns about any feedback that you're provided, know that I'm here. Send me an email, especially when it's directly related to your own work submission, and let me know what your questions or concerns, and if we can't resolve it through chatting through an email, I'm happy to set up a time on the phone to have a conversation with you about it. The papers were all fairly well done. Lots of really cool ideas. Some of you have been a nurse as long as I have, the 20, 25 years. And many of us have just been blown away by the level of innovation that has occurred in healthcare. Some examples of innovation that you guys came up with, the big ones were the electronic medical record, computer physician order entry, the barcode for medication administrations. Those are the ones that, many of us go, oh yeah, those are huge. I remember the good old fashioned soap notes when you actually had a paper chart and you had to open it and you could only use black ink and no red and, one line if you made a mistake with your initials and the date. The good old days when it was easy to fix a mistake. If you make a mistake in an EMR now, it's like you have to convene a Congress to have a conversation about it. So, you can hear the puppies. There's a dog outside walking by and they're talking to her. If it gets too chaotic, I'll pause and come back. Okay, so some other things that came up. Interesting, many of you picked up on new protocols or workflows within your environment specific to hospital-acquired infections, looking at your own processes and innovating new ways to fix them, which is really cool because that's what your quality assignment for this course is with your part 1 and part 2. So it's great that some of you have already had that role modeled for you. Someone mentioned the smart pumps, and I loved that because I remember back in the good old days when we had you had to regulate your drip flow with the little wheel, and standing there with your watch and counting the drips, and oh my heavens, I was so excited when they brought in the little pumps that didn't do anything more than you pushed a few buttons and it counted the drips for you. Now with the Alaris pumps and all the add-on pumps that you can have programmed, you almost need a technology degree to be able to plug in an IV, which is a little daunting, but it beats having to count the drips. See if there was anything else. Bedside rounding and reporting, whether you're talking about just taking it out of a group setting or whether you're talking about actually going into the patient's room on an hour to monitor their progress, their care, and their satisfaction. Those are huge. No one told me 24 years ago that I needed to go check on my patient. I certainly didn't document that I checked on my patient. I did what I did because of my own practice behaviors, because of my own intent to provide loving, supportive, nurturing care. Now we have policies that guide that, and that's a big change in guiding our practice. I think those are pretty much it. Lots of great ideas. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness in doing that. Now, when we look at your PowerPoints, one of the things I want to say is several of you did a phenomenal job of really creating a PowerPoint set that was aesthetic, it was meaningful, it was professional, it really supported your work. And that is always your goal when you're going to do a public presentation. You want to ask yourself, who's my audience? And what format should I deliver this information in a way that is meaningful? I judged research projects yesterday, and they were all from not all, but probably 90% of them were from either the med school or from biology in the chemistry department. And their slides came up in their presentation, and probably 70% of them were plain white slides, and they had no color, no filters, no pictures. I was a little distressed, but then I had to remember, okay, these are scientists. All they're there to do is deliver their research. So I had to remember, they probably thought about their audience too and forgot that it was good old me, not another one of their chemists. So again, just know your audience. Okay, great job with the PowerPoints. I don't have any, major critiquing with that. The other thing that sorry, I've lost my file. I'm trying to find it. You guys did a really nice job of doing your biblical integration. Your classmate Susan did a really good job of, on one of her slides in the PowerPoint, of connecting all of the dots for us. And I love several of you used this verse as well. And it was, I've heard the verse before, but I hadn't really tied it to innovation, so I was really appreciative of this. Susan, in one of her PowerPoint slides, wrote, Mark 2, verse 22, verses 22 states, no man also seweth a piece of new cloth on an old garment, else the new piece that filled it up taketh away from the old, and the rent is made worse. This applies to innovation because if the foundation of an innovative plan is not strong and solid, then the patch sewn onto the innovation will not hold up. Successful implementation only happens after a long, drawn-out process of planning and discussing, trying to foresee issues and create plans to deal with those anticipated issues. Wonderfully stated. And I love the idea of innovation being a patch in our work that really should strengthen it, should bind it, should build it up. And Susan is spot on when she says it's got to be meaningful innovation. I get tickled just as an educator that sometimes I will see other educators using new and shiny innovative technology, and it's not always used in the best, most meaningful way, and it creates distress from students. It's like, okay, this is interesting, but it's making my head hurt. We want to use innovative methods that are meaningful to the issue. So Susan did a beautiful job tying in the words from Mark to be able to connect those dots for us. Well done. Okay, let's switch gears real quick for next week. Your practicum log number 1 is going to be due. You're going to make sure that before you go in and enter your written narrative that you check your time log. Make sure that your time from 6:23 is correct in Typhon, and make sure that your shift time duration column is a roll up of all of the hours that you've accumulated. It's okay to break them down into goals and objectives, and I think conference and research is the other column, but your duration column from shift totals needs to be a complete roll up. So when you get ready to graduate, that column should say 200 hours at the bottom of it, or at least 200 hours. Enter your time first and then complete your log. Know that your practicum time log should match what is in your practicum log, your narrative. So if there are 3 days on your time log, there should be 3 days entered into your first log. Remember, each log tool has 8 days that you could possibly complete, so that should be adequate for this log period. Make sure to follow the script that you do your goals and objectives. Just include the ones that you've currently worked on. Your supportive narrative is telling me what you did with your time. Keep in mind that if you've been there 2 hours versus 10 hours, the length and detail are going to vary. 2 hours, you're going to have a paragraph or two. 10 hours, you're going to have lots of paragraphs. You want to be concise, but you want to provide enough detail that I can have a pretty good idea of how you spent your time. The other thing to really remember to include in your supportive narrative section are your personal self-reflections. This is where we think, the rubber hits the road. These are your aha moments, your pearls of wisdom. These are those things that when you were in a meeting, you heard somebody say and you thought, wow, I had never thought about it like that. Or you watch someone do something in a practice setting and you think, I think there's a better way to do this. The positive, negatives, the good, the bad, the ugly. We want to know your insights into it. The things that you will take away from this practicum experience are not the nuts and bolts. It's not I've been to these meetings. It's going to be your insights. It's going to be the time that you spent in self-reflection thinking, wow, that's big, that's powerful, that's important to my practice. Those nuts and bolts or those pearls of wisdom are going to be what you carry with you. So I want you to be thoughtful about that. I want you to include that in your supportive narrative section. And when you go to your application section, that is where you're going to connect your prior learning, things that you already know from your leadership or practice behaviors, with the ANA standards and your goals and objectives. That can be done pretty concisely, but you do want to be able to say, I'm bringing this information from a prior course or from prior experience. It applies to this situation, and the ANA supports it in this way. The ANA should be cited and referenced. It is perfectly okay with me if you want to reference it right there in the box, or you can do it at the very end of your log so you only have to write it once. Up to you entirely. Just make it somewhere in the document. But it should be directly. It should be cited in the body of your work. Okay, I think those are all the notes I have for you. If you have questions or concerns, know that I'm here. I realize that this is Holy Week and lots of you are very busy with church and those commitments. I hope they are a blessing to you. I hope that you are filled with God's grace and God's glory this week, and that you really are powerfully moved by the gift of our salvation. I am so amazingly humbled by that. This becomes, kind of an emotional week. I hope that Easter is a wonderful day for you, from a spiritual standpoint, from a religious standpoint, but also from a family standpoint. For us, Easter is one of those days that really is about connecting with family and connecting all of those pieces with our spiritual and religious practices. I hope there's an Easter bunny or two involved, maybe a peep. I'm a big fan of the original peep, the little yellow bunny. Do not take a substitute. Although I do, and my life is closely touched by people that think they belong in the trash. Please do not throw away your peeps. Feel free to ship them to me at Liberty. I love them. I hope you guys have a great week. I will look forward to seeing your work next week. And if you have any questions or concerns, touch base. Take care.